tonight, wind power near Port Augusta to soon hit the grid, and Whyalla Council opts out of live streaming public debate.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Casey Treelaw begins now.
Good evening. New production of renewable energy near Port Augusta is just around the corner, with Nexif Energy today saying it hopes the Lincoln Gap wind farm will be producing power by the middle of next year.
Energised and powering towards the goal of the grid.
The project's in a very exciting phase at the moment.
Fresh off the successful energisation at the project substation, 7 turbines have now been installed in stage 1 at the Lincoln Gap site.
It's comprised of 35 turbines, and then stage 2's 24.
Civil works for stage 2 will begin shortly, with both stages aiming to be complete by July next year, allowing the turbines to generate power into the grid for commercial operation.
We've still got quite a lengthy and exhaustive commissioning and testing phase. But we're on track. The
turbines to work hand in hand with battery storage proposed for the site, which will be the first of its kind in Australia. Nexif Energy also looking to utilise the full potential of the land for other renewable energy technologies.
That could be from solar to additional battery to other forms of technology that's out there to complement the wind we already have in the project.
The company crediting the success of the project to the local workforce of around 150 employees.
It's all hands on deck, very exciting time for the project and looking forward to it.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Golf News.
2 youth have been arrested for allegedly breaking into a church in Munter on the Yorke Peninsula last Wednesday. The 2 boys aged 12 and 14 have been arrested and charged with aggravated serious criminal trespass, 2 counts of property damage and illegal interference. They have been granted bail and are set to appear in the Kadina Youth Court. Anyone with further information should call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. With just a few days until New South Wales heads to the polls, the race for the electorate of Barwon is getting close. Labor candidate Daria Turley says she's receiving plenty of support right across the regions.
It's a seat held by the Nationals for almost 70 years. Could it be Labor's time?
You know you're not going to get all the votes, but you can see that the pre-poll is actually going towards Labor.
With one of the tightest state elections predicted to take place on Saturday, Broken Hill's Daria Turley has been drumming up support for Labor.
The communities are behind me across the board. Now, some of them are saying, I can't vote Labor, but I'm going to vote for you. And that's the big difference. They know and they've heard of me.
After meeting with communities all across Barwon, Ms Turley says there's no denying water management is a crucial issue. Labor's committed to establishing a royal commission into the governing of the system if elected, but it also says locals are concerned about health and education.
The lack of support around education will fund 100% of the Gonski funding. Labor's made a commitment to the nurse ratios that the Nurses Association have said.
The Barwon electorate is bigger than Victoria and Tasmania combined. It's 44% of New South Wales. Ms Turley believes those living out in the bush have been forgotten by the current government.
It's not about Sydney's and stadiums, it's about Broken Hill on the far west and across the electorate. It's time for change.
Patrick Ryankey, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Wreckfish SA has voiced concerns about fresh changes to laws allowing prawn trawlers to fish in snapper closure areas in the Spencer Gulf. The peak fishing body says it could further deplete snapper populations.
The waters of the Spencer Gulf are a haven for all types of marine life, but for one species of fish, numbers have plummeted over the last 10 to 15 years.
Anecdotally, the snapper numbers have been dropping, the catches have been dropping.
The dire circumstances were identified by PIRSA, and in December last year it introduced a plan to stop prawn trawlers fishing in snapper closure areas in a bid to boost the dwindling population. But last week that decision was reversed.
1 minute they're saying they need to be protected and bans have to be put in, and the next minute they're opening up for certain sectors.
Trawlers will now be able to fish in well-populated Spencer Gulf snapper drops, including Estelle Star, Jurassic Park, Santa Ana and Illusion. Wreckfish SA says it wasn't consulted about the new decision and is worried about the impacts.
The concern, of course, is that the activities of prawn trawlers in those areas will further deplete stocks.
The state's peak recreational fishing body has written their concerns in a letter to Minister Tim Whetstone, appealing for him to once again reverse the laws. Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Whyalla Council has decided against live streaming its monthly meetings. CEO Chris Cowley says legal advice suggests it's not in interests of elected members to have debates publicly broadcasted.
Live streaming of Whyalla Council meetings has been on the agenda since last year. The new council commissioned a report in December about whether they'd follow Port Augusta's lead. After reviewing it, plus taking advice from the state's corruption body, they've pressed pause on the idea.
Council resolved very clearly last night to uphold the previous council decision, which was to not record and not live stream council meetings.
Council meetings aren't privileged and members can be subject to defamation. Mr Cowley also says there were concerns raised by legal experts about how footage could be used.
Once it's live streamed, people have the ability to take comments and the debate out of context.
He also says there's a difference between a member of the public attending the meeting and them watching it via a computer.
You don't have the ability to then re-listen to the exact words that were said or replay it or cut.
Mr Cowley says all decisions made by elected members are recorded and minuted.
It does not reduce transparency. The decisions of the council meeting come out, they are immediately available to our public 24 hours later.
John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, an internationally acclaimed pink lake to become accessible for all, and why Broken Hill is celebrating happiness. Hello again. Lochiel's popular tourist attraction is set to become more accessible with the inclusion of a new boardwalk. Lake Bamunga, just off the Augusta Highway, has become internationally acclaimed for its iconic pink lake.
From fashion shoots to televised series, the iconic pink lake of Lochiel draws in plenty of international attention.
The amount of tourists that we get is unbelievable. We've steadily watched the increase for over 6 years now.
Port Wakefield Regional Council and the federal government have committed $500,000 towards a boardwalk in hopes of capitalising on a recent tourism boom.
Putting up $236,000 of the total project. The council will be doing the rest thereof.
The lake has grown in popularity thanks to promotions shot by Mercedes-Benz and an appearance in a Qantas in-flight tourism magazine. And now the local economy has been inundated with foreign tourists.
I come from Qingdao, China, and we searched on the map to find some pink lake.
Apparently our pies are famous in China, which is great.
And of course, one particular attraction certainly isn't scaring off the crowds. Behind me is the Salt Lake monster of Lochiel, Nessie. She's a bit easier to see in summer due to evaporation.
I think it's amazing, and I think we should be spreading this to the rest of the world.
Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Broken Hill motorists have been told to expect some delays along one of the city's busy streets. The local council is conducting an extensive reconstruction on sections of Oxide Street as part of its maintenance program. Council says the road has had problems with large cracks and potholes for some time. Excavation work began yesterday, seeing parts of the street closed off.
We're going to have one lane closed at a time, and we'll finish one side and we'll shift to the other side.
Council says the work will take up to 12 weeks. Port Lincoln's State Emergency Service was put through their paces on the weekend with the town hosting a mock search and rescue exercise. 30 volunteers from around the Eyre Peninsula getting involved.
When speed and timing is of the essence, emergency services taking part in a rescue exercise, putting their skills and knowledge to the test.
It's extremely important so that we're able to firstly validate the training that the volunteers do and to practice a coordinated search. 6
boats and over 30 volunteers joining together in Port Lincoln for the mock event, with members travelling here from all over the Lower Eyre Peninsula.
The capabilities in the Lower Eyre Peninsula will be exercised every year, that just shared between Cowell and Tumby Bay as well.
Today, volunteers are responding to a scenario where a vessel departed Port Lincoln and lost radio contact. Emergency services being critiqued on how they handle the situation.
Every boat will actually have an observer within that crew, and they will take debrief notes for the end sessions.
The search taking place in Proper Bay, with crews scouring the area for targets.
They'll actually be doing a creeping line search from the east to the west, heading north.
The exercises are all for preparing emergency services for the real thing. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Broken Hill has got a jump on the world, celebrating International Happiness Day one day early. Staff at the city's hospital spent the morning spruiking happiness to those who came through the door.
Don't worry, be happy.
That's the message of the day. It's happiness comes from what you do.
International Happiness Day is actually on tomorrow, but in Broken Hill it's so nice they're celebrating it twice.
And happiness, we're not talking about standing around with an idiotic smile on your face. That's not what happiness is about.
Mr Halliday says happiness is a general feeling of well-being over time. Today in the city's hospital, volunteers were talking to locals about how happiness can be achieved. From doing arts and crafts to performing Tai Chi, Mr Halliday says there's a manifesto of ways that can make someone feel a whole lot better.
Physically active, they mix with other people, generally have a positive view of what's going on in the world, and with some of the stuff that's on the news at the moment, that's hard to do.
It doesn't mean awful things won't happen, it's about how one copes with it. It could be as simple as getting out of the house to meet friends or going for a walk a few times a week. Mr Halliday says taking time to pause and take a break from the stresses of life can also be beneficial.
Basically taking an opportunity to stop that thinking for a short period of time.
Don't worry, be happy now.
Patrick Reinke, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Port Lincoln hosted the 100th anniversary of Munter on the weekend, celebrating the achievements of women within society. The organisation reflecting on its humanitarian work in third world countries.
It's what separates life from death for thousands of women living in third world countries. The birthing kit program celebrating its 20th year in operation.
It makes a difference often between whether a baby will live or die at birth. Same for the woman.
Every hour, 33 women die of complications related to pregnancy and childbirth, with an estimated 385,000 dying from preventable infections.
If you get an infection while you're giving birth to a baby, at a later date you could easily hemorrhage and you will die from the hemorrhaging.
Dr Mona Saivet says the kits provide a clean birth for women living in developing countries.
So they have a sheet of plastic, gloves, soap, scalpel blade, cord and gauze.
Today, Port Lincoln's Munter members joined together to learn more about the project.
Really highlighted to us the importance of these birthing kits and how they make a difference to women in underprivileged countries.
The birthing kit project looking to expand production with one clear message.
We will customise, we will innovate, we will do what is necessary to improve the life of the women at birth.
Anyone interested is encouraged to contact Munter. Nathan Regter, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break and look at all the latest sport results around the region, and we'll have the weather details with Britt. Welcome back. Whyalla Soccer returned to action over the weekend with the League Cup. Still United started the season with a bang, scoring 8 goals on their way to a win over Lions on Sunday. John Hunt joins us now, and John, Still made an early statement.
It was Casey. Lions were the reigning premiers, so this was no easy first-up match. Lions scored first, and at one stage it was 2-2 before Steele took control. New recruit Douglas Wade scored a hat-trick as they romped to an 8-2 win. In the other match, Wanderers held off a fast-finishing Westlands 4-3. To basketball now, and it's finals time across the region. In Whyalla, men's Rapina are premiers after the narrowest of wins against the Wildcats, while in the women's, Titans overcame Demons. Down in Port Lincoln, Sharks won the women's flag with a 48-38 win over Waybacks in the decider. It was the final round in Port Pirie basketball before finals. In the women's, Patriots defeated the Globetrotters, while 11 points from Jada Hill saw Tomcats edge out Pacers, while in the men's, Pacers and the Ducks had comfortable wins. And in Port Augusta men's, Wildcats are through to the grand final after a win over the Eagles. They'll play the Cobras in the prelim after they defeated Titans, while in the final round of women's, both Falcons sides recorded wins. Switching to softball now, and it was the final regular season round in Whyalla. Tigers were too strong for the Indians, and the Roadrunners had a 10-run win over the Eagles. And finally, in Broken Hill tennis, drop shots, swallows, backhands and topspins all secured wins. So that's all from another big week of sport, Casey. We'll be back again next week with all the scores from across the region.
Thanks, John. And time to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Britt.
Thanks, Casey. It's been another fine and partly cloudy day. Port Augusta with a top of 32, Whyalla 27, Port Lincoln 25, Broken Hill 35, Port Pirie 31 and Adelaide 28. A high-pressure system centred over the Tasman will continue to extend a ridge over our region until the end of the week. Southerly winds tending southwesterly at up to 20 knots on the waters tomorrow, seas to 1.5 metres, and the sun will rise just after 7:20. It's looking to be a mostly clear day tomorrow. Port Augusta 33, Whyalla 28, Port Lincoln 25, Coffin Bay 22, Woodner 31, Corn 34, Broken Hill 35, Port Pirie and Clare both 31, Cleve 27, Kadina 28. Looking ahead now, Port Lincoln partly cloudy through till the weekend, maximum steady in the mid-20s. Similar conditions for Cleve, up to 30 degrees on Friday and Saturday. Woodner 33 on Thursday, then tops of 30 to end the week. Whyalla looking fairly consistent, tops of 29. Port Augusta with a maximum of 33 Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Kadina 30 on Thursday. Port Pirie 32 on Thursday, Friday and Saturday both 31. Clare much the same with maximum staying in the early 30s. Broken Hill sunny and 36 on Thursday, 38 on Friday. And that's all from me, Casey, back to you.
Thanks for that, Britt. And that's the local news this Tuesday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.